Good afternoon and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this online open event for the undergraduate certificate in history. My name's Andrew Hopper. I'm the course director for this academic year, and I'll spend the next half an hour or so talking about the course and introducing you to it and introducing you to some members of the course team and some past students at the end who will be able to share, well, one current student and one past student who will be able to share their experiences on the course with you and answer any questions you may have. And we'll take questions at the end too. So the course was originally set up in 1997 by my colleagues Tom Buchanan and Christine Jackson. Now, Christine's now retired, but Tom is on study leave this year, and he has been the course director for many years, and he's returning in September 25 to be course director for one more year before his retirement. So Tom will also be teaching on the course next year. So the foundation certificate was set up to help diversify recruitment into undergraduate study of history. We take mature students of all age groups and backgrounds, and it's taught over 2 years as a face-to-face course in our headquarters at Rewley House on Wellington Square in Oxford. And overall, it's equivalent to a first year degree in history, first year of an undergraduate degree in history at Oxford or at another UK history department. And over the 28 years or so that the course has been running, we've now had over 50 students who've used that course to access onto undergraduate degrees in history in the Oxford collegiate system. Many doing so as second year entrants onto the BA in history at Oxford. Many others have gone on to study history at other universities. Some even have gone on to postgraduate work, and we have an example of that today with one of our students, Spencer, who's now doing a Masters of Studies in History. So we're very proud of our large numbers of alumni, and there's no specific kind of typical student who takes this course. As I said, the students are from a range of age groups and backgrounds and places. But the one thing that unites them, I guess, is that they do need to be able to attend face-to-face sessions once per week during term time in Oxford. So it's not an online course as such, although there are online elements such as tutorials via video conferencing and things like that. It is a face-to-face, in-person course. We really enjoy teaching it because there's such a wide range of experience in an undergraduate certificate class. The course used to be known as the Foundation Certificate in History, but we had to change the title because of some misconceptions about the course. As I said, it is equivalent to a first year of undergraduate history. So it's studying history at degree level rather than as a prelude to studying history as degree level. It's taught over the 3 academic terms of Oxford in 10 weekly sessions, which will fall on Wednesday nights this for our intake that begin in September 2025. And those sessions run between 7 and 9 o'clock at night. So people need to be able to either commute in for those events or stay in Oxford for them. We're only about a 10-15 minute walk from Oxford Station, and there are buses and trains available. And so we do get students, quite a number, commuting in from various places, often quite a few from London, for our evening classes. We have a virtual learning environment too, which supports the classes, and we record our weekly sessions so that if you are ill and you can't attend a session, you can at least watch the video afterwards to help catch up on what you missed. So I'm now going to guide you through our slides about the undergraduate certificate. And please do, if you have any questions, type them into the chat. And Hazel, our course administrator, will help us with those at the end. And we'll answer those questions at the end. So I'm a historian of early modern British history, in particular the civil wars of the 17th century. And I have a real passion for this period in British history. I do quite a bit of public engagement and collaborative work with schools and museums and things. And I'll be teaching a second year part of the course on approaches to history, and also the option in the second year on the early modern English nobility, which we'll come on to a few more details about shortly. I've been in the department for 4 years, nearly 4 years. And before that, I was at the University of Leicester for 15 years, teaching quite a lot of mature students there as well. There was a course on English local history there, which attracted lots of mature students. So that's my background. I'd like to next introduce my colleague who's not here today, Dr. Rosemary Creswell, who is a modern historian of British history. Especially her recent work is on the history of the Red Cross, and she's interested in the history of health, medicine, humanitarianism. And Dr. Creswell teaches part of the approaches to history in year 2, and also some of the British history in year 2 as well. Now, one of my colleagues who is here, I'd like to invite now to introduce herself and her role on the course.
Thank you, Andy. So my name is Janet Dickinson. I've been in the department at Conted in Oxford for a bit longer than Andy, and I've really enjoyed my years working in Oxford, particularly because of the students. Colleagues are good, but the students are the best thing. And what's so nice about this course in particular is that we get these 2 hours a week to get together and to have these discussions in person. And just in case you're wondering, the section of the course that I teach is the first module that you'll take on the history of the Tudors. So we go across in 13 sessions across the course of the Tudor period. We go chronologically and then we go thematically. So the idea is that you're getting a nice grounding in that subject and in how we might approach that subject, what's important about it, what the key areas are. So subjects like religion and religious change, of course, but also government and the state and how they operate. We also think about society. We think about how all of these things going on at the centre with the monarch affect the lives of ordinary people. So we look at issues of gender, we look at the impact of religious change, we look at the economy. We look at towns and cities and how they're working. So there's a lot to our 13 weeks together, but the intention is that you should be able to come in knowing nothing at all about the 16th century and leave knowing a fair bit, but also knowing how to study a subject. We'll go on, Andy will go on in the slides here to tell you a bit more about the shape of the course. But one key thing to remember is that we're expecting you to come in and really to be teaching you the skills that you need to study at university level. So all of that is more or less what I aim to do with the Tudors module. It's very close to my own research, as you'll see from this slide. And I look forward to answering any questions you might have. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks very much, Janet. So the programme then, the key facts, we study it over a 2-year period. It's equivalent to first year undergraduate history level, and it's taught in person in central Oxford. And the course begins at the very end of September. And there's a study skills day we begin with, because we appreciate that many of our students haven't been in education or higher education for quite a long time, and they need to acclimatise. And so we try to help them settle in with helping them develop the study skills they'll need of reading, note-taking, analysing sources, building arguments in essays, that kind of thing. So we start off with a study skills day, and the department has a wider generic study skills program too that people can sign up for. So we're looking for people with a strong interest in history and a real passion to broaden their historical horizons, to learn more about history, and to deepen their knowledge and develop their skills as a historian and their critical thinking. No formal qualifications or previous study of history is needed. It can be an advantage, but it's not needed. And we look at every application very carefully, and we want to consider what people have done rather than what they haven't done. You know, what skills, what transferable skills and experiences they might have that would help them thrive on this course. So the course is structured then with Wednesday evening teaching. Many of the sessions are taught through the delivery of PowerPoint slides. There's often small group discussions as well, where we'll pair you up to discuss a particular source and then report back, for example. And so the sessions are a mixture of kind of a formal talk, but also leavened with informal discussion and exercises and tasks during the 2-hour sessions, and the whole class meet for that. Whereas with tutorials, these can be in smaller groups discussing a particular source, or they can be individually. And often we use Microsoft Teams to deliver those. For instance, you might want to discuss the feedback from your recent essay, and work on how you might improve it in your next piece of work, that kind of thing. You can book in with one of us for an online tutorial to discuss that kind of thing. So that augments the formal timetable teaching and is arranged at a time of mutual convenience. Then at the very beginning of the second year, we invite students to attend an intensive study week, usually in the very first week of September, from Monday to Friday. So if you'd like to apply for the course, that's something you should think about sort of blocking out of your work timetable, that first week in September for the second year of the course. And there we invite students to pick one of two options. So we split the cohort of students in half, and that's where we really immerse you in the primary sources on a topic, and you get a timetable sessions through the mornings, and then things like tutorials, library studies, and plenary sessions and things with student support advisors and librarians and things like that in the afternoon. And some students like to be residential in Oxford for that, if they live far away, saving them from commuting in every day. And the nice thing about Rewley House is that there's quite a number of bedrooms on site, so you can book in to stay the night, maybe after a Wednesday night, if you want to elongate your stay after one of the regular classes. But we advise students to get the most out of the study week in September. It's a good idea, if you can stay in Oxford, to really immerse yourself in the study for that week. And we have lunch together each day in our splendid restaurant, which we have on site as well. So the course content, here is the first year. You'll take 2 courses: the British history, the Tudor period, taught by Janet, which we've just heard about, runs from the beginning of October right through to kind of the end of January. And then you swap over and do modern European history from 1815 to 1914. This will be taught by Tom Buchanan, who is returning from his year of study leave. And that's a course that's studied thematically. So there are, initially there are big theme overview approaches, things like industrialization, nationalism, imperialism, the formation of Germany and Italy, revolutions, those kinds of things. That course then takes you through to the end of May. Those are the 2 courses for the first year. Each of them is assessed by 3 essays, and in the summer there'll be a 3-hour exam for each of those courses in June 2026. And in a 3-hour exam, you answer 3 essay questions, hopefully spending an hour on each. And that they're in our other centre, Ewart House, which is in Summertown in North Oxford. And that's a traditional sort of old-fashioned sit down in an exam hall and write an essay style of exam. And we appreciate many of our students haven't done that for a very long time. So we try to prepare them for it with revision sessions and with a mock exam too in May to give them a practice run so they get a feel for how to do it and how to prepare. So in year 2, then year 2 commences with a option, that primary source-based study that I just mentioned. And of course, by September 2026, Professor Buchanan will have retired. So he normally offers the Spanish Civil War option, and he'll have retired by then. So it's unlikely that the option will be on the Spanish Civil War, unless we're able to appoint a replacement member of staff who happens to have a speciality in that field. It's much more likely to be a modern European history topic of some sort. We can't say yet because we haven't recruited the member of staff. So it's very unlikely it will be Spanish Civil War, but it will be a modern European topic of some sort. And I'll be offering the nobility and gentry in England over that Tudor and early Stuart period. And you have a choice between those two. When that finishes in January, there will be, in late November that finishes, there will be a course called Approaches to History. And this looks at how we study history. And looks at particular types of history, and hopefully will broaden your horizons to a number of interesting new approaches. And that's taught on a thematic basis, and there are 8 sessions on that. And currently myself and Dr. Creswell deliver it, and we cover topics like postmodernism, women's and gender history, landscape history, oral history, art and history using visual sources. And there's also a session on history and memory and memorials and that kind of thing. And there's a session on historical controversies, which I lead, where we look at how historians have approached the study of the Salem witch trials. That course is assessed by just a single essay. There's no exam for that course. And when that finishes in January, you undertake your final part of the course, which is an overview survey of British history from 1900 to 1979. And that will be taught by Professor Buchanan and Dr. Creswell. And it covers mostly political and social history with some of Britain's international relations over that period. So that's the layout for the second year. So there's the recap of the assessment for the first year. And then in year 2, you'll write 5 essays of 2,000 words, one longer essay on the option where you really get to go to town using your primary sources. And that's a 4,000 word essay. And then we have the 2 exams, same as in the first year, at the end of the second year. One's on your option and one's on British history. And the exams make up 60% of the final grade, and your coursework makes up 40%. So those essays make up 40% of your final grade. And we allow one essay not to be submitted. So if in your 6 essays you get a bad mark, which is a bit out of character, perhaps you've struggled for some reason, we allow you to kind of not count that when we move forward to the exam board. You pick your best 5 out of the 6 that you've done. The weighting we've recently changed the weighting as well to allow our students more time to acclimatise and bed into the course. So your first year will count for 40% of your overall mark, and your second year will count for 60%. So there's a greater emphasis on how well you're doing at the end of the course. It used to be 50-50, but we've changed that to allow our first years a bit more time to acclimatise. So whilst you're a student, you can take advantage of all kinds of opportunities. I would say perhaps chief among them is the Oxford University Library Card, which gets you access to all of the libraries, all of the Bodleian University Library network, including the massive electronic resources that are available, which are really useful for people who are studying from a distance. Electronic books, journals, it's everything. I've taught in 5 universities, and there's nothing remotely as good I've had use of compared to the Bodleian Library and its electronic resources. So you get access to all of that. You can go and work in the wonderful Radcliffe Camera or the Bodleian Library itself, whichever buildings, they're all open to you. You can also have a look around the colleges. So your student card will get you, you're able to visit all of the colleges without paying a fee. And also you're able to attend lectures, undergraduate lectures for the history faculty, which are often held in the examination schools on the high street. So some students like to prolong their stay around their weekly class and perhaps stay overnight or come earlier in the day and attend a history faculty lecture as well as coming to their class. And on completion of your course, you'll be invited to an annual award ceremony in the Sheldonian Theatre next door to the Bodleian Library. We've just had one such ceremony last week. There's another one coming up in May, so you get an option of 2 ceremonies to attend, where you will receive your certificate from the Vice Chancellor or someone important, and we have a nice reception afterwards back at Rewley House. There's also an annual dinner after your exams. We realise that you work really hard on your exams, so we like to celebrate with you your completion of them afterwards. And invite you to an annual dinner at the end of each year of the course, again held in a very nice restaurant in Rewley House itself. So the application deadline for this wave of applicants is the 1st of May. You'll need a written statement, a personal statement of why you'd like to take the course and why you think you're a good candidate, what skills and experience you have, which we should consider. We're really interested in why you love history and what makes you want to do the course. So we'll look at that carefully. And my best advice is keep it personal. Let's hear about you. Let's hear about perhaps what books you've read, what films you've seen, what places you've visited that have helped to inspire your love of history and why that's the case. You can send us a CV too, and the contact details for a referee and proof of your English language ability. Now, with a referee, we appreciate that some of you will not have been in education for a long time. It's good if you can get an academic referee, but if you can't, it could be someone from your workplace or someone that you volunteer with or someone that knows you very well, but obviously not a family member. No formal qualifications in history are needed to apply. So there's a few more hints there about your personal statement. What makes you so interested in history? What is it about the course that excites you the most? You might want to mention some of the aspects of the course I've just described in your personal statement. So we'll be looking for a clear interest in history and why you'd like to study it. And where you see it leading on to, what you might like to do afterwards if you really succeed and thrive on the course. We will be inviting applicants to interview. We interview on Microsoft Teams, and our course administrator will send invites out to applicants. I'll be interviewing all applicants. Janet will be assisting me with half of those, and Dr. Creswell will assist with the other half. So you'll know those are the people. That's the interview team, and they last about 20 minutes or so. The interview, and it's a chance for us to get to know you a bit more and ask you why you'd like to undertake the course and what your plans are and so on. Our department is able to offer bursaries to help with the funding. The fees are on the website, and you can apply for bursaries if you're from a lower income household, and there's a link there that explains more about those. So I think that's sort of a quick whiz through the slides. I hope to have covered most things. One last thing I should mention is the workload. So it's a part-time course. It can be done alongside your employment commitments. We're often asked, how many hours a week do you think it takes should we set aside? And say as a rough average, maybe about 12 hours a week, because you'll be writing notes, reading, writing essays, preparing for the classes by reading the key readings and as much of the rest of the book lists as you can read. So it varies from week to week, and you can be flexible in how you apportion your time. But to really sort of thrive and make the most of your potential, I would say probably about 12 hours per week is a good thing to try to allocate. And over the past few years, we've had a cohort in a year of between 10 and 20 students take this course each year. So it's quite a small group teaching, and the seminars are very inclusive, and we like to try to involve everyone in each of the seminars to get everyone to make a contribution to discussion of some sort. So I think I shall probably wind things up there, and now I'd like to hand over to our students who are waiting here to share their reflections with you. So I can see Spencer's name is on here. Can I ask Spencer to introduce himself next, please?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Spencer.
Fabulous. Well, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Great pleasure to be here. My name is Spencer, and I completed the undergraduate certificate a couple of years ago now. I think it was October 2021 to summer 2023 that I took it. And so I suppose it would have been March 2021 that I was sitting in exactly this call myself and wondering whether or not this course was for me. Thinking about whether I was hardworking enough or really had the time or the capacity to commit to it. And to be honest, I wasn't entirely confident in my answers, really, but I knew that I just was really interested in history. And actually, it transpires that that's really the most important part of your application for this course, in my view. I'm so glad that I did take it on, because it's just a fantastic course. It's really good fun. And well, for me in particular, it's just added so much value to my life. I did the course for 2 years. I then went into the postgraduate certificate afterwards, and am now completing a part-time master's at New College, which certainly in my eyes is one of the more spectacular colleges at Oxford. And yeah, it's just been a fantastic experience. And so I'm so pleased I went along with it. I don't want to waffle on too much or really repeat too much of what Andy's touched on there. So I thought I'd just discuss a few reflections, I suppose, and one of which is the social side of this course. When you come into your first session, you meet your cohort. I think there were 18 people in my group, thereabouts. And of course, these are the people that you will spend an awful lot of time with. I think Andy said there are 28 or so of these hourly sessions throughout the year. So you get to know them very well. And every cohort that I'm aware of that has done this course over the past few years has been much the same. A massive variety of people from all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different ages, all coming together because of their sort of mutual interest in history. And as a consequence of that, you have these very discussion-based seminars. You forge some fantastic friendships. The intensive study week that Andy referred to there it certainly is intensive, but it's also probably the most fun that any of us had through the course, because you spend so much time with these people and just have an opportunity to talk about history in a way that I think is quite rare if you're not doing a course like this. It's very typical that we go to the pub for a drink or two and continue talking about it after each one of the weekly seminars. And still now I've formed some really firm friendships with a lot of the other people who've come through the courses with me into the postgraduate certificate and then into the masters. So yeah, that's a massive positive element of this course for sure. To touch on the workload too, I know Andy discussed it at the end there. This recommendation of 12 hours a week, and that slide towards the end showing the 6 2,000-word essays per year thereabouts, and the 2 exams. I mean, it is a lot of work, and there's no way around that. But you can be very flexible with it. I think that 12-hour recommendation is certainly a great thing to aim for. And yet there is no one-size-fits-all approach. I mean, I work full-time. I have done throughout the entire course. And certainly there have been weeks where I've not been able to get any work done at all. There have then been others when I've taken vacation from work and have spent day after day after day in the library, just really absorbing myself into whatever it is that I'm studying, particularly in preparation for the exams. If you're like me and haven't done much handwriting, then 3 hours of frantic scribbling is quite a physical challenge, really. But yeah, it's none of it's too challenging. As long as you can set aside the time, the course has a fantastic sort of trajectory through it, really. They guide you from day one, where you're not expected to really know anything. You're just fueled by a passion for history, towards the end, where you have a really fantastic knowledge of all sorts of different topics throughout more modern history, a bit of early modern too. And you've been taught how to think, you've been taught how to study, you've been taught how to prepare and compose and write arguments. Yeah, the course in and of itself is sort of by itself is a fantastic sort of self-contained experience. But what's quite common is for a lot of people to move on to a next step, one of which is the postgraduate certificate. I believe there are also some people who continue into the second year of an undergraduate course, either at Oxford or at other universities. But certainly for me and quite a few others, we went into the postgraduate certificate. I know this won't be relevant for all of you, but I think it's worth just mentioning as a potential avenue for after the course. I do believe you have to have completed a full undergraduate degree at some point. But the postgraduate certificate is not wildly dissimilar to the undergraduate, but it is just at a higher level. And you're expected to do quite a chunky dissertation at the end, I think 8,000 words. And again, the postgraduate certificate is a certificate in and of itself, but it also forms the first year of a 2-year part-time master's, which is, again, what myself and quite a few other members of my original undergraduate cohort have gone on to, where the work is basically just that one big dissertation. There are a few other bits and bobs, of course, and we have our sessions that we meet throughout the year. But it's a 15,000-word dissertation on a topic of your choice. And I suppose that's the final thing I'd say on this is that you really are encouraged throughout the entirety of the experience of these various courses, and more so the latter ones, but there's a lot of flexibility to follow the topics that you're interested in. Every time there's an essay, you have a choice of, I mean, I seem to recall like 20 different essay titles that you can choose from. So there's all sorts of different topics. So if you're interested in Henry VII, but you're not really that interested in Elizabeth I, then dive straight into Henry VII and fill your boots. So in conclusion, sorry, I could waffle on for an awful lot longer, but I suppose in conclusion, what I'd say is that when I was in this course a few years ago, I was feeling really quite underconfident about my ability to succeed on it. I didn't really know that much about the topics that had been spoken about. I wasn't really sure that I'd have the capacity to put the time and the effort in. And I remember in the first session, we were introduced to a couple of people who'd done the course and had later gone on to doctorates. And I remember thinking, that's just absurd. There must be some very, very clever people in this room with me, because there's absolutely no way that could happen to me. But the truth is that this course really does guide you through the early stages of a program that absolutely can lead to a master's degree, a doctorate if you're so interested, and all sorts of career choices. I mean, we've had lectures from a couple of people actually who are now doctors of the experts in their particular fields, who started on this course as well not so long ago. Well, I suppose some time ago, but in the not too distant past. So yeah. In total, fantastic course. Couldn't recommend it more highly, and I'm frankly quite sad about the fact that when I submit this dissertation in the next couple of months, that will be the end of my continuing education history experience, which is for me is quite sad. I'll have to think of another course to come and do a certificate in at some point soon. But yeah, more than happy to answer any questions. If you have any other questions, you feel free to email me. I'd be very happy to help, and would encourage all of you to get involved. Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you, Spencer. That's splendid. Thanks very much. So Spencer was also pointing there to what happens to some of our students when they finish the course if they decide that they don't want to go on to full-time undergraduate study. Some of the students can look at what part-time other history programs we have in the Department for Continuing Education. So some of our students like to stay with us and learn with us rather than go into full-time study. So, you know, there are a number of other history programs that people can apply for, some at undergraduate level, but as Spencer mentioned too, some at postgraduate level, for which you do need a prior degree to move on to those. So do we have Jamila? We have a current student, our current course representative amongst our first year students. Jamila, hi Jamila. Would you like to introduce yourself, please, and share your experiences of the course so far?
Yeah, everyone can hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jamila Deary, and I'm a current first year student on the course, and I also have the privilege of being the course representative for our class. So I'm excited to talk to you all about my experiences so far and what to expect from this course. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I applied to this course straight out of A-levels, having taken a gap year to work full-time. Having studied history at A-level, I realized it was my passion, and during my A-level studies, I became more connected with the Stuart period, completely fascinated with the political turmoil of the period and the shifting power dynamics of the era. I then developed a real interest in the Tudors, particularly the reign of Henry VIII and Elizabeth I, the complexity of their rule with the relationship with religion and the constant changing nature of the monarchy. These were the aspects that caught my attention, and it was this fascination with the early modern history that pushed me to pursue history further and eventually apply for this course. Studying the Tudors has definitely been my favorite part of the course so far, already having an interest in the period from my studies at school, but being able to deepen my understanding into the complexities of the Tudor rule and the interplay of religion, politics, and the monarchy. And that's been fascinating. It's a period I never get tired of exploring, and definitely will find myself reading more into it again in the future. This course has been such a great fit for me, not only because I get to study history, but because I'm surrounded by people with the same passion for the subject. We're all here because we enjoy the subject and want to get a real understanding of the complexities of the past, and it is incredible to be around people who appreciate history the same way I do. Many of us end up sending each other articles and discussing interesting things that we found, even if it isn't directly linked with our current studies. It's the sense of community and shared interests that really enhances the experience here. That being said, the workload is definitely something to consider. It is a lot and may feel overwhelming at times, but what I've learned is that staying ahead makes all the difference. For example, getting reading done well enough in advance so that you have a good understanding and before you attend the class, which will deepen your understanding on a much deeper level. And pre-planning your essays well enough in advance so that you don't find yourself scrambling last minute. This also gives you more than enough time to check things over with your professor, which you might not have had if you left things till the last minute. And getting things done well enough in advance will make the workload much more manageable, something I've definitely learned the hard way. One of the most rewarding aspects of the course is undoubtedly the informal discussions with my classmates. It's often in these moments, whether being online or before our class, that I'm able to get a true understanding of the material. We're able to chat about things that we might have missed or things that we find particularly interesting, and these conversations usually open up new perspectives or ideas I might not have considered before. These informal chats are honestly just as valuable as the formal classes, helping connect dots between different parts of the course. To sum it all up quickly, this course is perfect for anyone who has a genuine passion for history and wants to explore it in depth with like-minded people who share the same enthusiasm. It isn't just about reading textbooks or attending lectures, it's about the community discussions and the opportunity to engage with history on a much deeper level. The workload can be demanding, but it is manageable and definitely worth it and a rewarding experience. Thank you all for your time and again for joining us today. I hope to enjoy the rest of this webinar. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to chat about my time on the course so far and share any more experiences with you all. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jamila. That's brilliant. Thanks so much. Can I ask about the current first years? There's often like a WhatsApp group, isn't there? So people can keep in touch with each other, which the staff are not involved with. How's that been?
Yeah, so we usually, like, if I'm reading something that I find like interesting, we usually just sort of send each other a link for like, oh, this is a good article for you guys to check out, or like podcast links. And also if anyone's like sort of doing the same essay, like we might put in the question that we're doing and it's like, do you guys think this approach for this question's okay? So it is really helpful when studying that we're sort of discussing the course all the time.
And some of the people that can arrive a bit earlier in the afternoon, don't they? And they go off for like, is it a noodle? Go for noodles before the class starts.
Yeah, we usually arrive like the class is at 7, but we usually find people start arriving around 3 o'clock, and then we sort of all sit in the common room, and that's when we also like discuss what we're gonna like talk about later in the day. So then if there's something in the reading that I didn't understand, someone else can sort of give me their understanding of it before we even enter the class. So I end up picking up a lot of things just sitting there and us discussing history for the day.
Okay, thanks, Jamila. That's brilliant.
No worries.
We should let our guests ask some questions.
Could maybe pick up on one question here from David Phillips, who asks, is there a limit to history lectures outside of the course that I could attend? And I think really the only limit is how much time you have to do that, really. As Andy said, you can attend any lectures in the history faculty. There are a few things in there where they have particular kind of constraints on room size, say, so then they'll flag that up. You can get in touch with them and you can say, can I come along? And they'll almost always say yes. So no real limits, just practicality and I suppose exhaustion at some point, because there are so many things you can go and do. And just to tidy up as well, Simon Stubbs asked how many places are there on the course, and I think that was before we clarified up to 20 is usually our top limit. Okay.
The most distant city in the UK, we had a first year coming from Newcastle this year. So, you know, that is quite a long way. Most of our students, I guess, come within a couple of hour radius of travel time from Oxford, but that encompasses quite a lot of England. But it's all a question of how, you know, how you can fit it in with your other arrangements and your work arrangements and so on. Jamila, where do you come in from?
I'm just outside of London, so it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours for me. So it's not too bad in comparison to everybody else that's in our class.
Right, thanks. And then the cost of the course is on the website, and of course it's split over 2 years. And if there are any questions about that, do get in touch with Hazel Richards, please, our course administrator who handles that side of things.
Well, somebody has asked, an anonymous attendee has asked how the course compares to an Open University course. I'm probably best placed to comment on that because I taught for them for 10 years. And I'd say the absolute key difference is the in-person sessions. With the Open University, you get those kind of weekend tutorials and you occasionally get an opportunity to join those in person or more often online. The whole point of this course really, or one of the kind of founding principles, is that we meet in person, which Jamila has explained as well the outcomes of that. You can have noodles together and you can talk about history with a bunch of people who won't, unlike members of your family, tell you to shut up and stop talking about history. So I'd say we're really happy that that's a key element. Beyond that, just one more point, which is to say for the Open University, they provide you with your course materials. So you have printed books and you have a website. For Oxford, it's a bit more open-ended. Everything you need is available in the library. A lot of it is done through remote access, so you can't quite get every book that you might want to read sort of online, but you can get an awful lot of it. And we have our own library at Rooley House, so you can pop in there when you come in for the weekly sessions and take books out. So I'd say, I'm not going to say which is better, I'm just going to say it's distinctive from what you get with the OU because of the in-person and probably also just the richness of resources.
Thank you, Janet. We have a question about whether you can read towards a BA. We don't offer a full undergraduate degree in the Department for Continuing Education, but as I said, this certificate is equivalent to the first year of a BA in history. So what we do is we help our students then apply to go on. If they want to do a full BA, they can then apply to other universities, maybe other UK universities, or even to an Oxford college, and they can apply for second year entry into a full BA in history, having completed the first year with us. And we have a student support officer, Emily Mandeville, who helps us with that, and we'll help you with your UCAS applications. And if you'd like to try to apply to an Oxford college, we will prepare you for the famous Oxford HAT test and interview that you would have as part of that application process. And we do get students being issued offers, and as I said, since 1997, about 50 or so have gone on to take up places. Some as second year entry, some as first year entry across quite a few different Oxford colleges. Recently, we've had students go to Oriel, Harris Manchester, Regent's Park, and Corpus Christi are some examples of where our students have gone in the last few years since I've been here. How many applications do we usually get? We don't share that with applicants, but we do fully consider everyone's application, and we like to be as inclusive as we can in our admissions process. And as I say, we aim for a group of up to 20 or so each year. Are there any further questions? Thank you for your questions so far. They've all been good questions. Is there any more questions? What is the success rate for those on this course if they would like to continue to study at Oxford? It varies from year to year. So if those who want to continue, if you mean entry into a college to do a full-time undergraduate history degree, there's probably been an average of 2 per year who've succeeded in doing that in the 50 years, sorry, in the 26 years or so of the course's existence. But many of other students who continue to study with us in the department, either on one of our other undergraduate certificates and diplomas, we have a range of those in local history, or on the postgraduate certificate in history, or the masters in local history. So quite a few students each year, maybe 3 or 4, continue to study with us on those different programs within the department at Oxford. Mike Sanders, if you have a BA and an MA in creative writing already, but would love to do a Masters of Studies in History, would this course potentially open the door to that? Well, it would certainly strengthen your case for applying to a Masters in History if you'd done a history program with us before. Yes, I would say so. It would be a good thing to have as part of your application. The applications for the PG Cert in history and the MSc in English Local History, two of our other programs, are very competitive. We have a lot of really good candidates for those courses, so that would help you strengthen your application to take this. Yes. Okay, one from Nancy Wood. My keenest interest is post-Roman pre-1066. Not sure how that would work in this course, considering the eras studied over the 2 years. Yes, I'm sorry, we don't have any medieval history on this particular certificate. So I'm sorry we can't help with that. If that's your burning passion to study that period, you probably better look elsewhere rather than this particular course. Okay, we've got a few more here. Are there short-term courses? I did such a course earlier at Queen Elizabeth House on forced migration. Janet, would you like to take that one?
Can do, yes. If you have a look at the department's website, we have a lot of different models now for courses. So we have online courses which run for about 10 weeks. We have weekly classes which run for 10 weeks or 5 weeks. We've got a new model that's being trialled. We also, for Nancy, we have lots of courses in archaeology, and also we do have some early history courses. So they would all be worth kind of having a look at. There are lots of ways in which you can come at this subject with continuing education. The undergraduate certificate is a very specific option, but there's lots of other kind of routes, as it were, through the programme. And David has asked what the single biggest factor for success is in this course. I'm not sure if you mean in your application or once, as where people are actually accepted onto the course, I would say it's just a love of history, really. If you love the subject and you are able to commit the time, and we all appreciate how difficult that can be, but if you are able to consistently find the time to engage with your studies and follow the guidance, as it were, and do what we're asking you to do, then your love of history will carry you through that, and I think that's the most important thing.
I'd have answered that in the same way, Janet. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy.
Any further questions? We do have a few more minutes before our cut-off point, I think, at 1 o'clock. So we're happy to answer anything further.
I feel I should mention it's the anniversary of Elizabeth I's death today. So
Oh, really? Okay. How
Jordan
many? So 200 and sorry, how many? 7, well, 5, 6, 5, 4,
1603.
422.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay, trying to do the maths. 400. It's not a big one.
I'm an historian, Andy, not a mathematician.
Not a big anniversary, not like the 5.
No. We're not having conferences or putting out the bunting. It is actually King James's death year this year, so we are having conferences and an exhibition up in Edinburgh for that. So plenty to talk about.
Well, we have the department's big anniversary coming up in 2028. That would be 150 years of the Department for Continuing Education as it was originally set up as the Oxford Extension Movement. So we've been going since 1878, when the first lecture was given to King Edward's School in Birmingham. And the idea was to widen access to Oxford and reach out to new audiences, and especially to working class audiences. And many of our predecessors were clergymen and Christian socialists, and that was the idea. It was to spread the accessibility of an Oxford education to all. That was the rationale behind the foundation of our department, which we do try to live up to. Okay, we've not had a question for a couple of minutes or so. So thank you very much indeed, everyone, for attending the session. We hope you found that useful about the course.